with Mama Says Namaste.
I am back again with a repeat guest this week. I'm so excited to have Kimball Lewis back with me on this week's episode. Back 10 episodes ago, in episode 252, I had Kimball on talking about what to do when your child acts out. And in that episode, he talked about how he could really go deep with the topic of lying. And so I wanted to bring him back for us to have a conversation around lying, which we know is something that that all of us might do at sometimes. Those little white lies, or maybe those bigger lies, and it can be a little bit scary when we catch our kids in them. So, as always, when we do these guest interviews, they are available in multiple formats. I always have a complimentary blog that goes along with our episodes. In addition to that, of course, you've got any way of listening to it on or through audio, and then also on YouTube. We'll have the whole video on YouTube, and you can see us talking and not just listen. So plenty of ways to listen to this episode. And now we want to dig into to talking with Kimball all about lying. So welcome, Kimball. Glad to have you back on.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks for having me back. This is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't give a major intro because we do have a lot about what all you do with empowering parents in the first in episode 252, like we talked about when your child acts out. But just as a quick brief here to give an update to people as to what you are involved in. You are CEO of Empowering Parents. What all does that mean, and who are the people that you will work with?
So we are the home of a child behavior program called the Total Transformation Program, and we call it the instruction manual for dealing with defiant and acting out kids. And it was developed by a guy named James Lehman a little over 10 years ago, and he passed away shortly after he came up with the program, and it was wildly popular. And so I'm basically evangelizing the work that he put together about 10 years ago. It's a very, very popular program for parents who are dealing with defiance issues with their kids. So if you come to empoweringparents.com website, sign up for our newsletter. We have hundreds of free articles, but you can also sign up for the Total Transformation Program, which is a streaming online program. And then in conjunction with that, we offer parent coaching as well. So if you want to talk through the program as you're working with it, you can actually talk to one of our coaches as well. So that's what we do at empoweringparents.com, and we work with parents every day, hundreds of them.
All right. And yeah, some of the cases that you work with, is this, how often, what type of scenarios are you dealing with? Is this just the little basic parenting things? Or are you dealing with serious issues here? We touched on it a little bit with the acting out.
It can run the gamut. Most of the parents that come to us are, quote, at their wit's end. So whatever's going on, they're at their wit's end. And it can be, depending on where you are as a parent, it can be something that be fairly minor, which is your kids are generally okay, but you argue all the time and you just can't take it anymore. So you need a way to get out of that, all the way to where we have kids that have what we call oppositional defiant disorder, which is their very basic natures to be defiant about almost everything. And it involves often stealing and a lot of lying and property destruction. So it can run the gamut of things that seem relatively mild, but the parents just fed up, to the kids really in a bad place and headed in the wrong direction. And we work with parents of kids age 5 all the way up to 25, because there's a big issue with adult kids living at home. So
I love that you recognize that. Yeah, that childhood sometimes is going into 25, and I know that age between 18 and 25 is just, there's so much that can happen during that stretch. And I wanted to specify that and see that, because, here I am on I'm a parent coach, and I'm having another parent coach on here, and I see that as such great collaboration, because it's great to have many of us out there, and we all have these different little areas of expertise, and it's great for me to have a resource for a family that may be dealing with an extreme case at this point, and now they have a child with oppositional defiant disorder, and I have a resource that I can help to connect them to give them that support and to walk them through some basic steps. So it's just one of these beautiful opportunities when I bring in these guests to widen my circle of influence by allowing others to create their impact as well and to add that insight. And there's always that opportunity that, yeah, something that Kimball says is just spot on for what you need. And I celebrate that and encourage you to sign up for the Empowering Parents newsletter and check out what all they are doing there. All right. So in that, a lot of the parents that I'm dealing with are before they get to their wits' end. They are trying to do the right thing. They have good hopes and intentions for their kids, and they want to make sure they don't get to the point of needing to have that major course correction. So when it comes to lying, yeah, I'd love to kind of open this up because I told you even before we started this interview that I was interested into what all could we talk about with a whole episode just on lying. And I feel like you're fully confident we can. So I want to hear, what's your take on lying? What's the impact, the importance? Is it okay to, let a little lie slide? How do you have this conversation with your kids? There's so many questions around this. So, first off, why do you see the importance of a specific or like zoning in on this topic about lying?
Well, in the program, like the whole transformation program that we offer, we actually have very specific behaviors that we talk about how to deal with this behavior, how to deal with this behavior, how to deal with this. So it's almost like a toolkit of resources you can pull from. And lying is such a really common one. Stealing is another one. So we'll have a whole thing on like what to do if your child's stealing from you. So lying is just one of those behaviors that it's really common. Like almost all kids lie. And if you think your kid has never lied to you, you just haven't figured it out yet. Like my kids are pretty good, but they're old. They're like 18 and 21 now. And we were at dinner the other night and they were laughing about how they put one over on us as parents once. Like, and
and it happens as much as you think, there are times you do. I know my daughter pulled one over on me the other day and we had a conversation about it afterward, or my husband called her out on it. I did not catch it at first at all. So it happens.
Yeah, it happens, and it happens with the best of kids too. But it becomes a real problem when you have a kid who has like defiance problems and problems meeting responsibilities. And what they're essentially doing is they're using lying as a problem-solving technique. They've got a problem, they didn't meet a responsibility. Either they learn how to meet those responsibilities effectively, or they figure out a way out of it. And one of the things they do is they lie. They'll just basically tell a lie, like, like if you're not supposed to go someplace after school and you went there anyway, you lie about it. You tell your parents, no, I didn't go to that party that was serving alcohol. I wasn't there. They just basically lie about it as a way to solve the problem of they haven't figured out how to follow the rules appropriately or meet their responsibilities. And it's just for a kid who's having problems, and we see behavior issues as a problem-solving skill. They have life's problems, which are functional problems. They have social problems, and lying is just a very immature tool that they get out of those problems. And it actually works for them a lot of times because if it works, and they don't get punished if the parent finds out about it. So we just tell parents this is a behavior problem. Mm-hmm. And I want to make that distinction because this is one of the key points, is that we urge parents not to view it as a moral problem, view it as a functional behavior problem.
Okay. So this is flat out behavior, not to do with your moral integrity. So is this just a natural process that all kids are going to test out and try?
All kids who haven't figured out better ways of solving their problems. Yeah. When I say problems, I just make clarifying that I think we talked about this in the last episode. Talking about functional problems, like getting up and going to school, getting home by curfew, getting your homework done, learning how to get along with others, basically. These are like the basic life problem skills that kids use acting out and other things when they can't solve those problems appropriately. Mm-hmm. And when I say act out, like a lot of kids will act out and scream and yell at their parents because they don't want to do chores, for example. Mm-hmm. And the parents finally give up and go, "This isn't worth it," and they stop expecting their kids to do their chores. So these lying and acting out and other things that kids do are actually problem solving skills that work for them. They're just not, they're not what you want to send the kid out into the world with, because you're not going to get very far in the world if your go-to problem solving skill is to lie about everything, because eventually you get figured out.
Yeah.
So we urge parents, not a moral issue. So it's a functional issue. And if you treat it like a moral issue, there's a real downside to that, which is that your child might begin to think that they're defective. And you don't want your child to think they're defective. They're not defective. They can learn when confronted with that fork in the road, whether to lie or tell the truth. They can learn that, hey, I'm someone who tells the truth. And we feel very strongly that kids can learn better problem solving skills, and they can choose the path of telling the truth. And honestly, if you make it a huge moral issue and your child thinks that you think they're morally have a moral problem because they lie, they're going to lie to you even more, because a kid doesn't want the parent to think that there's something morally wrong with them.
Right.
So it actually promotes more lying.
Right.
So
when we feel shame around it, then we try to cover that up even more. So yeah, I can completely understand that. So if I have a child that is in a lie, if I catch him in the lie, how do I call them out in a way that's not going to shame them and it's going to address the issue?
Well, we do urge parents to always call out the lie. And if you think they're lying, it's okay to say, I'm going to follow up and check things out, but this doesn't sound right. And if they've lied to you in the past, their reputation is hurt. And it's okay to say them matter-of-factly, without lecturing, saying, I need to double check things, because in the past you've lied, and you've lost my trust, and I'm going to have to, you can regain my trust, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And that's part of the consequences of lying, is that you lose our trust. And so we'll follow up on those things. But one of the key things that we do when they do lie is, and this is really effective, is they're usually lying about something they did that they're going to get in trouble for, or something they didn't do. Either they didn't meet a responsibility, didn't do something they were supposed to do, or they did something they weren't supposed to do, and they lie about it. So what we recommend is you have separate consequences for the thing they did wrong and the lie. So totally separate consequences for the two.
Okay.
So the next time that they do something wrong and they're confronted with it, they have a choice to make, which is, if they know they're inevitably going to get caught, then they have two consequences.
Gotcha.
If they tell the truth, they have one consequence. And in fact, if they fess up and tell you the truth and come clean about it, like, depending on what they did, you can go easy on the consequences, or not even have a consequence and just say, look, please don't do that again next time. And I really appreciate your honesty.
But that's a great way to put it into perspective, to keep those two separated, because that is a thing where I can see a family feeling like they're trapped. Well, if they tell me, then they get out of getting in trouble for it. Well, they still did something that was wrong, and I want to punish that, but I also don't want them to lie to me about it. So it's this vicious spiral. But if you're separating the two and you're recognizing that there's two aspects to this, your actions will catch up with you, and you will have a natural consequence for your actions. One action is lying, and this is the natural consequence for lying. Yeah. Two separate things. That's beautiful. And on that, so what would be a natural consequence for lying? How would you wrap that around? Because that's oftentimes
there's not always a natural consequence for something.
Right. It's like we want natural consequences, but sometimes it can be really tricky to figure out, what do I deem that's not just punishment and shaming, but it's actually doing something that's helping to give them that tool so that they are better equipped to not do this again.
Yeah, I mean, usually you can make it related to what it is they didn't or didn't do. Like if they came back after curfew and they lied about it, then you can set their curfew back or do something else. So there's not clearly a natural consequence, but there actually is. You can explain to them that there is a natural consequence, which is that so let's say your child went someplace that they weren't supposed to go, and they lied about where they were. Happens a lot. I plead guilty. When I was in high school, I went places and I told my mother I was somewhere else. Mm-hmm. A natural consequence of them having done that is that, as a parent, when they say they're going someplace, you start calling that place, and someone better answer, and you start checking up on them. And And until they are consistently where they said they were going to be, and they can prove it through you checking up on them, you're going to keep doing that until
trust is earned back.
Trust is earned back. So that right there, that's a natural consequence of the lying as well. So,
and that's what I've told my kids is that, yes, we're going to talk about the issue at hand, but the natural consequence of lying is that you've eroded our trust. And so you have to build our trust back. And so that natural consequence of lying is that I'm going to be second guessing you a little bit more. I'm going to be double checking you. I'm going to be checking in on things to make sure that you are being true to your word, because it's been betrayed in the past. We can always rebuild it. But right now we have to start a little bit. You have to start over a little bit, and let's build this back up again.
Exactly. And this is another reason why you want reasonable consequences. If you want your kid to learn from your consequences, it's not meant to be like just this harsh punishment. If you're giving your kid really harsh punishments, it's going to promote lying, because it's, especially if the punishment doesn't meet whatever the crime, whatever it was that they did, they're going to want to lie to get out of that really harsh punishment as well. So you have to sort of keep that in mind, that you want to keep things reasonable to promote honesty within the household. So if there's too much retribution for what they've done wrong, you're going to get a kid who's lying to you just out of like self-preservation. And that's not where you want to be either.
Right. And I love, I mean, you referenced that in the last episode, just about making the, making the consequence match what happened, match the transgression, and being short-lived. And I love that, because I think that that's oftentimes what we parents get in a trap of, is that we say, you're grounded for a week, and then they're already grounded, so they can get away with anything else for that week because they've already gotten it. And then we just end up, well, now you're grounded for 2 weeks and 3, you're never leaving the house. You can't do that. And so having things that are quick consequences and that they can move through, allows you to move forward a lot faster and not get trapped in I've already dumped too many consequences on you situation.
You don't want to bankrupt your child.
Exactly.
Because then they have nothing left to lose, and you have no leverage. You don't have any leverage anymore for behavior issues and stuff. So
right. So is this something that, our way to make this happen is, of course, we can confront them if we catch them. If we obviously want to catch them in a lie if we can, and just call them on it at that moment. Then we also have, having to go back afterward, or dealing with the consequences when we find out afterward, and dealing with that. If we haven't had any of this, do we just wait till it happens? Do we have a big announcement ahead of time? How can we kind of set the precedent that we are a non-lying household? And is it ever okay to do a white lie?
There's a lot of questions there.
I know.
White lies are fine once in a while. You can, those are fine.
That one, I definitely, that one can open the door to the conversation, because there's white lies, because, you teach your kids not to lie. And then your mother-in-law comes over and says, "Don't you love this dress?" And you go, "Yeah." Like, and you don't.
Yeah, it's not. That looks horrible. And did you gain weight? Like, it doesn't work. Yeah, you
want to say nice words, right? And so
that's you want to socialize your kids to know how to say the right thing and not the wrong thing, and
with good tact. But is this something that you encourage having a certain conversation, opening the door in some ways? If you've got somebody that's like, I don't even know how to start this conversation, or I don't know where to go, I'm starting to see signs, but I'm concerned.
So first of all, if we talked about at the beginning that all kids probably lied somewhere along the line, but if your kid's meeting all their responsibilities and they're not having any behavior issues, just just trust them. Like, it's not worth trying to find and dig up something that an otherwise well-behaved kid is doing, just to be able to find them in some kind of like a lie here and there. Like, if they're generally being fine, just count your blessings and your kid's pretty good. If, on the other hand, you're starting to see behavior problems with your kid, then you start, like, especially if there might be drug or alcohol issues going on, or suddenly they become really reclusive, or they stop doing their homework. Like, if they start hanging out with the crowd that you're a little nervous about, or friends or whatever, you should start your radar should go up and go, their personality's changing. Something's a little bit different here. And I'm going to be on the lookout for whether or not they're being honest with me, because those are all tied into when you see your kid either not developing the way that you think they should be, or having, issues problem solving effectively. Just keep in mind that lying is a tool that they're likely to turn to. And so your radar should be up at that point. And most parents just instinctively, listen to your gut. You'll know if you have a reason to doubt your kid for some reason. You just have this feeling I'm not sure I'm getting the whole story here. And lies in our household, lies of omission are lies.
Uh-huh. Well, but what you just said right there is just a great conversation to have. Just say, I don't feel like I'm getting the whole story.
Yeah.
Being honest, because that's the biggest thing. If we're fearful that our kids are lying, well, let's be honest with our kids. Are we lying to our kids or to ourselves in this scenario? Are they catching us lying? Are they seeing us modeling this behavior? That's the episode, as we're doing this interview, the episode that's going out today, which is episode 262, is about recognizing that our children are going to only listen to our advice for so long, but the influence that we've had, our actions are what they tend to really pay attention to, and tend to model how our actions and reactions are and how we're handling things. So just having that conversation, if you start to feel that insecurity about where your kid is, ask them, is that, is there an opportunity there for just honest conversation? I think sometimes parents just assume their kid has already shut them out, and so they don't open the door to simply be vulnerable themselves. It's that need to come in as control versus, hey, what's going on?
I think you want to keep the lines of communication open with your child. So we recommend keep the lectures short, minimize the lecturing, just tell them sort of matter of factly, these are the values of our household. Mm-hmm. And then if you have questions if you have concerns about them, let them know. You can give them a notice hey, I have some concerns about where things are going with this, and I'm going to be checking up on stuff. So I'd like you to be honest with me, but I'm going to be checking up, because it's okay to say that to your child. You're basically kind of putting them on notice. And privacy within the household. Privacy is something that if your kids, everything's going fine, we are all for letting their kid have their space and their privacy. But if there's something wrong and something going on, they lose that right to privacy. It's almost if the police have reasonable cause, they can look into stuff. And that includes checking out their phone or something. Like if you have a kid who's having issues, within your household and they're still living under your roof, you are the parent of the household. You have a right and a responsibility to be looking into those things.
Right. And that is your responsibility, to be managing what's going on in your household and knowing what it is. And the reality is, as much as we want to give our children autonomy and privacy, everything they have, we're paying for, we're providing, we're supporting. Yeah. And that gives us every right to check into and investigate. So, I do agree with you. I am very much on giving our children their privacy and trusting them in that. My daughter has a journal, and I've been so curious about it. She journals every day. I'd so love to read it, but I respect her privacy, and there's no reason for me to feel like I need to. And, instead I opened up, started doing a different journal with her that we share. But that stays hers because she's earned the right. And that's the big distinguishing factor, is you get the opportunity for privacy when you earn the right. That's your own autonomy. As you earn the right to be able to stand on your own, you can afford to have those things that are your own, and you pay for them and you deal with the consequences of them. So until you get to that point, it's part of that process of the kid, what we call individuation, which is they're becoming a separate person, separate from mom and dad and the family. And you want that. You want to encourage that. You want them to become their own person, and you actually want them to move out for the most part. Most people do. You want your child to be independent, because you can't be around forever to take care of them. Right.
So, and that's all part of it, their privacy and all those other things. But if they're not meeting their responsibilities and they're having problems, then as a parent, you need to sort of follow up on that. So, and you had mentioned conversations about lying, and we do recommend And you can do this even when you're not suspecting something as a core value in your household. Explain certain core values that we have. And I'm a huge proponent of telling your kids, in this household, we don't lie. We tell the truth to each other. Mm-hmm. And explain to them why that matters. Because if you do lie, you lose our trust. And if you lose our trust, this is what happens when you want to do things, is that we're not going to trust you, and we're going to be following up, and you're not going to like it. And then moreover, and kids may not realize this, is that they need to understand that lying hurts their credibility, not just in the home, but when they leave the home. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal. If you go into the working world and your people know you as someone who doesn't tell the full truth or lies or whatever, no one wants to work with you. Like, it hurts you professionally. It hurts you in so many ways. It hurts your friendships if you're that person. You want to be that, from your self-esteem standpoint, no one wants to be a liar. Mm-hmm. And explain to your kid that you have a choice in all those situations. You can be the kid who tells the truth and doesn't lie. So, mm-hmm. and make that a core value and state it. You can actually write it down. We recommend, for, especially with parents that are having issues with their kids, just so things are clear, you can write down the rules of the household and put them on the refrigerator. And those rules could be things like, we don't swear in this household. We treat people with respect. We don't hit people, and we don't break things. Like, it doesn't have to be a gigantic list. It can just be a few cute, key things as to how we conduct ourselves in our household. And some kids need that. They need that set of rules that you can point to and say, the reason you're getting a consequence, or the reason this is a problem, is because we have rules in this household. Those are the rules. And that's why. This isn't just between you and me as like two, mom and son, or dad and son, who are fighting and having a personality conflict. This is between you and the rules of this household, which are this separate thing. And we say, put them on the refrigerator. And it's also a good idea to have core values within your household. And honesty is one of those core values. And the earlier you sort of drill that into your kids, the better. You end up in a better place. And as you were saying before, Ashley, you want to model that stuff. If you're a parent and you're openly lying, and your kids see that, and they know it, like, I don't know, maybe you're lying to strangers somewhere, or you're lying about the reason you're returning something, and your kid sees that, they start thinking that's an okay way to behave. And then if you do, don't be surprised when they turn around and use that technique on you.
Yeah.
That's where they learn those things. So
for sure. And that's your big distinction between an authoritarian household that just says this is what it is, versus what we're talking about here with empowering parents. Empowering parents doesn't say, you have no responsibility in this, and you do as I say. Do as I say, not as I do, and I'm going to do what I want. I think that those rules put on the in your household, and those family values are things that are, way better enforced when everyone is practicing them. And if you can get everyone on board for creating them to begin with, reminding them of what, talk about what your values are. We talk a lot about the family vision. So if you're creating that family vision together, you're looking at what values are important. It's easy to then pull from that the quick cheat sheet of, okay, these are the rules that are going to fit into this. These rules or these issues that we've had in our house, let's agree on it. We're all doing this. And now we've got a statement that it's not just, it's my way or the highway for the kids. It's, we're living this by example. We are all agreeing to these house rules together.
Yep. And don't underestimate the power of setting the culture within that household and saying, these are our values. And you say it over and over again. And family is important. Like you see families that you just know, like family, like it's all, even as much as they might be fighting. My wife comes from an ethnic family, and they're very family oriented. I've never seen a family fight so much, but at the end of the day, they are like, they are family. Like it's, blood is thicker than water, that whole thing. Like, it's like, they are, you know what I mean? Like it's, and that's because it was driven into them. And it's the same with like culture around lying and other stuff, that if as parents, you're just pushing that culture all the time, it really does work. And we recommend you set the tone and you set the culture whether you like it or not, as a parent, you're a leader in the household.
100.
You can let your kids be the leader. We don't recommend that. Some parents choose to do that. Right. And some people think that's the right way to go. And we probably don't see eye to eye with them at empowering parents. But we come from the standpoint that someone has to make the rules in the household.
Right.
And we think that it's better that it's the parents than the kids, and that in general, things function better when the parents and the mature people are making those than the people who haven't been through life very long. That's not to say that parents are perfect. Parents are very imperfect. We're all imperfect. But we're probably in a better place to do that than a adolescent.
Right. We have a few more years of
So,
experience behind us. And the beauty is our honesty and our imperfection, that we aren't on a pedestal of perfection that they can't attain, but that we do mess up. And when we do, we confess up. And when we do, and we can, move through those and not just cover ourselves in a lie, that's showing them that other tool, exactly like what you're talking about, so that they don't see lying as the only tool to get out of something. So it's such a great opportunity to be able to do that.
And the other thing I'd like to add is when your child lies to you, like when you know your child's lying to you and they're like just looking you in the eye and they're telling you a lie, you want to resist the urge to just be like, how dare you lie to me like that? Like you have this urge to like, how can you possibly lie to me and look me in the eye and tell me that?
It's a moral attack, and now I'm going to shame you for it.
It's not just that, like, they're immoral and you've attacked me as a person. And like, that's not where you want to be as a parent. You want to handle it as like, like you're in a courtroom and they lied, like, okay, here's a penalty for lying. And actually in a courtroom, lying is handled as a separate offense from the crime. You're being tried for crime. The crime, the jury is going to decide on the crime. But if you lie in court, there's a separate trial for perjury. So this idea of separating the having different consequences for the lie versus what happened is not, we didn't make that up. That's how courts actually function.
Yeah.
But we urge parents, don't take it personally. It's a behavior problem.
Yes.
And if they're lying to you, like, it feels disrespectful, but like, swallow that urge and just handle it more business-like. And the other thing is if you take it really personally, I might've talked about this in the last episode, because I urge parents and talk about this a lot. If you take it personally, it's so hard to forgive your child when they improve. And we are in the child improvement business, and we see it all the time, and these kids get better. And if you've taken all that stuff personally, it makes it so much harder for you to forgive and forget your child for having gone through these struggles where they were turning to poor problem-solving skills, such as lying or disrespectful behavior or swearing at you, things that they're doing because they're kids and they don't have good problem-solving skills. And when they improve, you want to be able to forgive it. And part of making the forgiveness process easier is to not taking it personally from the beginning and just seeing like, my kid has a behavior problem and they're swearing at me, they're lying to me, they're telling me they hate me.
Right.
It's a behavior problem. It's not because more deep-seated things hate it. So we urge parents to take it as a behavior problem, and it makes you more effective in the moment, because you're less likely to lose your cool. You're more likely to behave with a reasonable consequence. And when you don't overreact to that lie, I'm going to say overreact. When you don't like flip out and overreact to that lie, you don't give the lie the power that it deserves. I'm sorry. I'm saying
power it doesn't.
I'm saying this wrong. Yeah. Don't give the lie more power than it deseres.
There we go.
And you do when you overreact. Yeah, it's hard to say those things, but sometimes kids have a superpower, which is they're not in control of anything in the world except their parents. And they have this superpower to make these adults crazy. But they can only make one adult crazy. They can only make their parents crazy. Like they don't make other adults crazy, because they don't have because the other adults I don't care about you.
Well, because for that point, I think it's because so often we as parents, we do take it personally. We take their actions personally as a reflection of us as parents.
Yeah.
And we have to remember that we as parents, becoming a parent doesn't negate our own emotions and our own need to look for the proper tools for acting out and all of those different things. We still deal with all of these same feelings and emotions, and we've got to figure out what's a positive way to deal with it. Just like what you're saying, you're giving them a tool to say, okay, don't take it personally, and this is your tool to handle this in a different way. So you as a parent don't act out to your child, because that's the only tool you have, because you're hurt, your feelings are hurt, you're mortified at what's happened. this is their responsibility, and it's your opportunity to work with them and walk them through those other tools that are more effective, and doing it by example.
Yeah.
Such a great
way. And you just reminded me, when you don't take it personally, you're modeling the behavior you'd want them to see when they realize that you're not a perfect parent.
Exactly.
They won't take that personally either. So it's kind of how you model forgiveness. And look, we all have issues that we're struggling with. Even as parents, we overreact. We yell when we shouldn't. We we're going to overreact, and we just want to do it less often, and do the ineffective things less often and the more effective things more often. It doesn't mean it's not going to be 100% ever. So.
Right. All right. Well, I thank you so much for the conversation today. I hope it's been helpful, and recognize, lying is something that it's a normal thing that kids will test out. There are times that, we do say little white lies just for sake of tact, not hurting somebody's feelings. But that doesn't, there are so many distinctions here, and just reiterating a few of these key points of making sure that you're looking at, lying as a separate action than whatever the transgression may be. So treating those separately, not taking it personally as the parent, but looking for how to effectively help your child with better tools to navigate it. And these are such valuable ways to prevent it from happening in the first place. And the best thing you can do is, if you're seeing that behavior, any of these behaviors you don't like in your child, first and foremost, check yourself. Make sure they're not getting any of those behaviors from you personally. And if so, the most amazing course correction I see is changing myself first. And when I do, it's amazing what other behaviors happen when all of a sudden, okay, now I'm going to practice what I preach, and I'll force what I'm practicing. That's a really effective way to do it. And honesty is such a beautiful way to create that core in your home, and to create that connection of, we're not all perfect, but at least we're going to be real with each other. And that's a beautiful, authentic household that will be messy, will have its ups and downs, but we'll be able to celebrate those elements of how we all can come together. So thank you very much. Are there any last words you want to say for any parents stressing about lying in their household?
So this is just one behavior of many.
Yes.
And if you're listening to this podcast, you can get better. You can learn how to deal with these things. Yeah. And I'm grateful for the blessing that your podcast is, because someone's listening may take away a different way of approaching lying. And there's a whole bunch of behaviors, and there's a lot of resources out there. So if you're struggling as a parent, and you're often seeing these things for the first time, just keep in mind there's a lot of resources out there, and sort of good advice from people who have come before you and been through these things.
Yes. All right. Wonderful. Okay. And your website again for everybody to go to?
empoweringparents.com.
Okay.
And if you want Facebook or Instagram and search for Empowering Parents, you'll find us as well.
All right, empoweringparents.com. Thank you so much, Kimball, for joining us today. And go love on your family. Be honest with your family. Share the ups and the downs. And remember, the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us. Namaste.